Welcome to Heartline Stories. What happens when trust is stretched to its limits and a simple dinner becomes a stage for betrayal? In today's story, a husband's choice leads to an unforgettable twist, leaving everyone stunned. As events unfold, unexpected truths come to light, and lives are changed forever. Will trust be rebuilt, or will secrets tear everything apart? Watch closely. You won't believe how this tale unravels. Let us know where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more captivating stories. Tom was a businessman. He had worked hard to build his company and wanted everyone to respect him. But there was something bothering him. Every time Tom looked at his wife, Cindy, he felt embarrassed. Cindy was kind and gentle, but she didn't look fancy like the other women Tom knew at work. She wore simple dresses and didn't care about makeup or jewelry. One day, Tom got an important invitation. His boss was hosting a dinner party, and big clients were coming. Tom wanted to impress everyone at the party, but he didn't want Cindy to come along. She's too plain, he thought. Tom decided to invite his new friend Ruby to the dinner instead. Ruby was beautiful. She wore shiny clothes and had perfect hair. Tom thought she would make him look good in front of his boss and clients. Cindy didn't know about Ruby. When Tom told her he was going to the dinner alone, Cindy smiled and said, "That's okay, Tom. I hope you have fun." Cindy trusted her husband. She didn't ask any questions. The night of the dinner arrived. Tom was nervous but excited. Ruby arrived at his house wearing a sparkling blue dress. Tom couldn't wait to show her off at the party. They walked into the big hall and everyone turned to look. Tom smiled, thinking everyone was impressed. But as the evening went on, strange things started to happen. The boss's wife gave Ruby a cold look. Some of the clients whispered to each other and avoided talking to Tom. Tom didn't understand what was wrong. Ruby laughed and talked loudly, but something felt off. Then Tom overheard a client say, "Who is that woman? She's so rude." Tom's face turned red. He realized Ruby wasn't making him look good at all. She was embarrassing him. And just when Tom thought things couldn't get worse, the hall doors opened and someone stepped in. It was Cindy. Cindy walked into the room with a quiet confidence. She wore a simple yet elegant dress that Tom had never seen before. Her warm smile lit up the room, and heads began to turn. Not because she was loud or flashy, but because she carried herself with grace. Tom froze. He had no idea Cindy would show up. Ruby stopped laughing mid-sentence and narrowed her eyes at Cindy. Cindy approached the group calmly, as though she belonged there. "Good evening, everyone," she said in her gentle voice. The boss's wife, who had been avoiding Ruby, immediately stood up to greet Cindy with a handshake. "Who is this lovely lady?" one of the clients asked. Tom stammered, This is Cindy, my wife." The room went silent for a moment, and then the boss himself came over. "Tom, you never told us you had such a charming wife," he exclaimed. "Cindy, it's a pleasure to meet you. Please join us." Cindy smiled politely and said, "Thank you. I didn't want to disturb anyone, but I thought it might be nice to come and meet Tom's colleagues." Her tone was kind, but there was a quiet strength behind her words. As Cindy mingled with the guests, something remarkable happened. The clients who had been whispering earlier now seemed drawn to her. She asked thoughtful questions, listened intently, and made everyone feel valued. Even the boss's wife looked at Cindy with admiration. Tom felt a mix of emotions, confusion, guilt, and something he hadn't felt in a long time: pride. As the evening went on, it became clear that Cindy was the star of the party, and not in a way that demanded attention. She simply radiated kindness and authenticity. Meanwhile, Ruby grew restless. Her jokes didn't land, and her loud laughter started to feel out of place. She excused herself to get a drink and never returned. But Tom was too focused on Cindy to notice Ruby's disappearance. He couldn't help but wonder, why had he been so ashamed of this incredible woman? And just when Tom thought the night couldn't surprise him any further, his boss turned to him and said, "Tom, I think your wife should join us at the company retreat next month. We could use her wisdom in our discussions." Cindy smiled and looked at Tom, her eyes filled with warmth and understanding. "What do you think, Tom?" she asked. Tom's mind raced. He looked at Cindy, unsure how to respond. Just hours ago, he had been ashamed of her. Now, everyone in the room seemed to admire her more than him. He felt a lump in his throat and forced a smile. "Yes, Cindy is amazing," Tom said awkwardly, trying to find the right words. "I think the retreat would be a wonderful idea." Cindy's eyes sparkled, but she stayed calm. "That sounds interesting," she said kindly. "I'd love to help if I can." The boss nodded approvingly and turned back to the conversation. Tom felt his cheeks flush. He had come to the dinner hoping Ruby would make him look good, but it was Cindy who was stealing the show. As the night went on, Cindy continued to charm the guests. She shared simple but wise ideas about teamwork and kindness, and the clients were hanging on her every word. Tom watched silently, still grappling with his emotions. Meanwhile, Ruby, feeling ignored, had slipped away without a word. Tom barely noticed her absence. His focus was now on Cindy and the unexpected role she was playing. As the dinner wrapped up, several clients shook Tom's hand, saying things like, "Your wife is incredible," and "You're lucky to have someone like her." Tom could only nod, feeling the weight of their words. When they got home, Tom opened the door for Cindy and followed her inside. She calmly placed her purse on the table and turned to him. "Tom," she said gently, "you didn't tell me Ruby was going to be at the dinner." Tom froze. Cindy's voice wasn't angry, but it carried a quiet strength that made him feel small. I I didn't think you'd want to come," Tom admitted, fumbling for an explanation. Cindy tilted her head slightly, her expression thoughtful. "I trust you, Tom, but trust can't be one-sided, can it?" Her words echoed in his mind as she walked into the living room and sat down. Tom felt a pang of guilt, realizing that he hadn't just underestimated Cindy, he had betrayed the very trust she valued. Tom felt the weight of Cindy's words pressing down on him. She didn't yell, she didn't accuse, but the calm way she spoke cut deeper than anything else could. He sat down across from her, fumbling to find the right words. "You're right," he finally said, his voice quiet. "I've broken your trust, Cindy. I I made a terrible mistake." Cindy looked at him, her eyes soft yet unyielding. "Why did you do it, Tom? Why did you think Ruby would be better company for tonight?" Tom hesitated. He knew he couldn't lie anymore. It was time to be honest, even if it hurt. I thought you weren't good enough for this kind of event," he admitted, his voice trembling. "I thought people would judge me for bringing you. But I was wrong. I didn't realize how incredible you are until tonight." Cindy nodded slowly, absorbing his words. "I understand," she said after a moment. "But it's not about the dinner, Tom. It's about us. Do you even see me for who I am? Or do you just see what you think others see?" Her question hung in the air like a heavy cloud. Tom wanted to answer, but for the first time, he wasn't sure he had an answer. "I don't know," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I want to. Cindy, I want to fix this. I want to make things right." Cindy leaned back in her chair, her expression thoughtful. "Tom, trust takes time to rebuild. It's not something you can fix overnight. But I need to know, do you respect me? Not just tonight, but every day?" Tom stared at her, realizing the depth of her question. He had taken Cindy for granted for so long, always focusing on appearances and others' opinions. Now he felt like he was seeing her for the first time. The strength, the kindness, the quiet confidence that had captivated everyone at the dinner. "I do respect you," he said at last, meaning every word. "I've been a fool not to show it before. I want to change, Cindy. I want to be the husband you deserve." Cindy gave him a small smile. "Actions speak louder than words, Tom. Let's see if you mean it." Tom nodded solemnly at Cindy's words. He knew this was his chance, perhaps his only chance, to show her how much he truly valued her. The next morning, Tom woke up early, his mind already racing with ways to make things right. As he sat at the kitchen table, Cindy quietly entered the room. She poured herself a cup of coffee and sat across from him. There was a calmness in her demeanor, but Tom could sense the lingering hurt. "Cindy," he began hesitantly, "I want to start proving myself today. I don't want my words to just be empty promises." Cindy raised an eyebrow but said nothing, waiting for him to continue. Tom took a deep breath. "I've been thinking. I want to show you that I value you, not just at home, but in every part of my life. I want to introduce you to the people I work with, not as an obligation, but because I'm proud of who you are. Would you, would you come with me to lunch with my team today?" Cindy tilted her head, studying him carefully. "You've never asked me to meet your colleagues before. What's changed, Tom?" He looked down at his hands, struggling to put his feelings into words. "I think I've been blinded by my own insecurities. I cared too much about what others thought, and I didn't see what I had in front of me. You're the most incredible person I know, Cindy, and I want everyone to see that too." Cindy sipped her coffee, her face thoughtful. "Tom," she said slowly, "I appreciate what you're trying to do. But this isn't just about meeting your colleagues. It's about whether you're ready to accept me for who I am in every way, not just because it makes you look good." Her words struck a chord deep within him. Tom realized that Cindy was asking for more than gestures. She wanted his sincerity. "I understand," he said softly, "and I don't expect this to fix everything overnight. But I'm ready to take small steps to show you how much you mean to me. Will you let me try?" Cindy held his gaze for a long moment before finally nodding. "All right, Tom. Let's start with lunch." The day of the lunch meeting came quickly. Tom found himself standing in front of the mirror, adjusting his tie for the third time. His palms were sweaty and his heart raced. He wasn't nervous about meeting his colleagues. They were people he spoke to every day. No, Tom was nervous because today was about more than lunch. It was about showing Cindy that he could be the husband she deserved. Cindy entered the room looking calm and composed as always. She wore a modest yet stylish outfit, one that perfectly reflected her personality, graceful and unpretentious. "You look beautiful," Tom said, his voice sincere. Cindy smiled lightly. "Thank you. Are you ready?" Tom nodded, though his stomach churned with unease. Together they walked out the door and headed to the restaurant where Tom's team was waiting. When they arrived, Tom's colleagues were already seated. He introduced Cindy with a mixture of pride and apprehension. "This is my wife, Cindy," he said, his voice firm but slightly shaky. Cindy smiled warmly. "It's nice to meet all of you. Tom has told me so much about his amazing team." Tom's colleagues greeted her with enthusiasm, clearly charmed by her presence. As the conversation flowed, Cindy listened attentively, occasionally sharing a thoughtful comment or a gentle joke that made everyone laugh. Tom watched in awe. It wasn't just that Cindy fit in, it was that she brought something special to the table. She had a way of making people feel at ease, of turning an ordinary meal into a memorable experience. But as the lunch progressed, Tom noticed something else. His colleague Mark leaned in and said quietly, "Tom, your wife is amazing, but I have to ask, why haven't we met her sooner?" Tom froze. He wasn't sure how to answer. Should he admit his past embarrassment, his shallow concerns, or should he brush it off and pretend nothing was wrong? He felt Cindy's eyes on him, calm but expectant. Tom knew this was another test, another chance to prove his sincerity. "Well," he began, clearing his throat, "I think I've been a fool, Mark. I didn't realize how lucky I was to have Cindy until recently. She's, she's my greatest strength." Cindy's expression softened, but she said nothing. Tom knew there was still a long way to go, but at that moment, he felt a small spark of hope. After the lunch wrapped up, Tom and Cindy stepped out of the restaurant together. The afternoon sun bathed the street in a golden glow, but Tom could barely focus on anything except the thoughts racing through his mind. He felt lighter, as if a burden had been lifted, but he also knew that this was just the beginning. "Thank you for coming with me," Tom said softly, glancing at Cindy. "You were incredible back there. Everyone loved you." Cindy smiled faintly but didn't say much. Tom could sense she was still guarded. He understood. It would take more than one lunch to mend the cracks he had caused. As they walked, Cindy spoke up. "It was nice to meet your colleagues. They seem like good people." "They are," Tom replied quickly, eager to keep the conversation going. "And they couldn't stop talking about you. Did you notice how Mark couldn't stop asking you questions?" Cindy chuckled lightly. "He was polite. But Tom, this isn't about what your colleagues think. It's about us. Do you really want to change? Or was today just a way to look good in front of them?" Tom stopped walking and turned to face her. "I want to change for us, Cindy. I want to rebuild what I've damaged. I know I've hurt you, and I can't take that back, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to show you how much I appreciate you." Cindy studied him, her eyes searching for sincerity. "Time will tell," she said quietly. They continued walking in silence, but the atmosphere felt different now. Not cold, but thoughtful, as if both were reflecting on everything that had happened. When they reached home, Tom excused himself and went into his study. He sat at his desk, staring at a blank notebook. He needed to figure out his next steps, but for the first time, he wanted to act, not just think. Later that evening, he joined Cindy in the living room. She was reading a book, her legs curled up on the couch. Tom hesitated for a moment before sitting down beside her. "Cindy," he began, "can I ask you something?" She looked up from her book, her expression calm. "Of course. What do you enjoy doing most?" Tom asked. "I feel like I've been so caught up in my world that I haven't taken the time to really know what makes you happy." Cindy blinked, clearly caught off guard by the question. "That's, a thoughtful thing to ask," she said slowly. "I love gardening. It's peaceful, and it gives me time to think." Tom nodded. Would you teach me? I want to try it with you. Cindy raised an eyebrow, a hint of amusement flickering in her eyes. You? Gardening? You're not exactly the outdoorsy type, Tom. He chuckled, scratching the back of his neck. I know, but I want to give it a shot. Maybe I'll surprise you. For the first time that day, Cindy's smile seemed genuine. All right, Tom, let's see how you do. The next weekend, Tom found himself in the backyard with Cindy, standing in front of a patch of soil. Cindy handed him a small spade and a pair of gloves, her expression half amused, half curious. All right, Tom, she said, we'll start with something simple. Let's plant these flowers. They're hardy and don't need much care. Tom nodded, eager to prove himself. But as soon as he bent down to dig, he realized something. Gardening wasn't as easy as it looked. His first attempt at digging ended with him flinging soil in all directions, and Cindy couldn't help but laugh. You're not trying to dig a tunnel to the center of the earth, she teased. Just a small hole like this? She knelt down beside him and demonstrated, her movements smooth and confident. Tom watched her closely, mimicking her actions. With each careful scoop of soil, he felt a strange sense of peace. Cindy's love for gardening was starting to make sense to him. As they worked side by side, Tom asked her questions about the flowers, the soil, and even the tiny insects they encountered. Cindy answered patiently, her voice filled with passion for something she had clearly loved for a long time. By the end of the afternoon, they had planted several rows of flowers together. Cindy stood back, wiping her hands on her gloves, and surveyed their work. Not bad for your first try, she said, smiling. Tom grinned, his shirt dirty and his face smudged with soil. You know, this was actually fun. I can see why you love it. Cindy looked at him, and for the first time in a long while, there was a flicker of warmth in her eyes. Maybe next time we can plant some vegetables, she suggested. I'd like that, Topham replied sincerely. Their journey was far from over, but as they stood together in the garden, surrounded by the first signs of new life, Tom felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. And so the seeds they had planted weren't just in the soil. They were planting the seeds of a stronger, deeper connection. Together, they were starting to grow something beautiful